Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. This is a webinar where we're going to explore the softer side of the skills that you need to be successful as an analyst and in business, and the communication skills that you require for influencing other people to listen to your point of view is so important, and it's a particular skill that employers are looking for from their candidates, and is what's going to make a difference to whether or not you're listened to, whether or not your data is really important, your insights are really important. You need to be able to convince other people that they are. And today we are very lucky that we've got Dr. Claire Walsh from the Institute of Analytics, who is our Director of Education, who is going to deliver this a really insightful session. So I'm really looking forward to it, Claire. Over to you.
Yes, this is going to be a little bit more interactive. I've got some polls coming up, and we'll just go through some ideas together. I think one of the great things about being a professional membership body is that we can see how people move up the career ladder. And without a doubt, when we talk to our most senior members, it is those soft skills that make the difference. Yes, we need the technical skills. And without a doubt, anybody who has, 10 or more tools on their CV has a lot better chance of getting hired. But then how do you thrive in that job? How do you get promoted once you're in there? And how do you continue to move up that career ladder? So we're going to go through the soft skills, which are often not something we might not feel comfortable with. Technology is our happy place, but nonetheless, we need them. Um, this is a conversation I used to hear it all the time, and I'm really happy that I think in the last 5 years, this type of comment has almost disappeared. I pretty much never hear it anymore. And it's this idea that there's no point trying to explain this to users, they just don't understand. So I'm not going to try. And there used to be a kind of a feeling that this was unacceptable perspective. I invested the time in understanding the technology. I'm not wasting my time trying to explain it to people who haven't. Um, and I'm glad it's disappearing. We know that there's this statistic that's always cited, but it is such a good one from the Carnegie Institute of Technology, that 85% of job success comes from having well developed soft skills and people skills. So just as we might have a plan for moving forwards with our technical expertise, we need to get a plan to move forwards with our personal qualities. Now then, we're going to talk about purple people. We are the purple people. Claire you're very purple today. Yep. There is this myth that you're either a data person or you're kind of like a business talky communicative person, that we're one of those or the other. And to put it very high schooly, which I'm not very proud of, it's the geek versus the athlete. It's this idea that there's this person who's super popular and liked by everybody and great with people, and there's this person who's really good with technology. And it's a very strong opinion we hold in society. Whereas the reality, if we were to measure your ability with data or technology, and if we were to measure your ability with, say, business skills, project management, communication, negotiation, these skills would be very evenly distributed through the population. There would be no correlation, because there's no logical reason why you should have one or the other. So where does this stereotype of the geek and the athlete come from? It comes from our personal experience rather than what the data is telling us. When we actually work with people, when we go to our jobs, we don't actually want to work with these guys. These guys they don't have the technical skills. They don't have the interpersonal communicative skills that you need to thrive in business. And we don't want to work with them in our teams. And so we never meet them. And then I'm afraid to say there are lots of people who are incredibly good at both business and data. You know this. Think of your heroes. Think of the Mark Zuckerbergs and all of these tech leaders. They thrive in both skills. They don't want to work with you, I'm afraid, right now. They have chosen not to work with you. And so the people we actually see in our day-to-day experience are these ones here. These are the people we're going to start meeting in our day-to-day experience. And you are all data scientists. I'm sure you can look at that scatter plot and you can see there is a very strong negative correlation between these 2 points, not because there is in the population, but because we've created that through our choices. And there is a name for this phenomenon. It's Bergson's paradox. Now then, and it explains why we have this false idea that you have to choose, you have to be good at one or the other. And the great news about this, of course, is that we want you to start moving into that purple triangle. We want you to become the purple people, the people who can seamlessly manage both. You understand the data, you understand the technology. Oh my goodness, and you're great with the soft skills too. And that's where the opportunities are. Right. So I've got a poll. I'm going to be brave. You know what? It's been about 4 years since I last launched a poll in Zoom. So please bear with me. Right. So now I was expecting, you know what? I was really expecting a huge number of you to say yes to the last one. Simply because when you do technology, this is the way we often approach our problems, isn't it? We do it systematically. We create a system, we analyze carefully. But I think it's really interesting, actually, that most of you are, we've got you fairly evenly distributed across these four ways of approaching problems. And I think that is the way we tend to experience life in general. Let me stop sharing my poll. Let me move on in my slide. It comes from psychology, this idea that naturally we feel more comfortable with some ways of dealing with problems, and we're going to have to work with people who have other approaches. We're going to get frustrated working with them. Claire is my colleague. I'm sure she gets super frustrated with my super systematized approaches quite often. But if we can understand who we are and how we respond and how people are different, it can help us. So we do have this idea of some people are red, you know, they have energetic, direct, business-like approaches. This was the first description. Hardworking, ambitious, they like fast results, and very, very decisive. Some people are more focused on team results, on sharing. Teachers often have this quality. And both myself and Claire were former teachers in our lives. You know, you're thinking about how you can persuade others, how you can influence others to get on board with your ideas, and they tend to, again, be quite spontaneous, make decisions quite quickly. Then we have our green people. These are more inward thinking, and I noticed lots of you identified with this. You like to sit on your own and think about problems. And certainly when we think about most people who sign up for a computer science degree, they quite like sitting in their room doing some coding on their own. That's quite often a quality we see. That does not mean they can't do all of this relationship thing. And then we have the compliance, and this is our analytical, technical people, really prioritize systemizing, being organized, being methodical, and standardized in the way that we approach our work. And the reality is the vast majority of us are going to be a mix. Hardly any of us are just one person in the way we solve our problems. The ones that will lead in the future are the purple people. It's those people who can combine business skills with analytical skills. We know that they are going to have amazing opportunities in the future. So this is not, you know, why do soft skills matter? You know what they really do when it comes to promotions and moving ahead. Some soft skills are going to benefit everyone, especially in the world of technology. And, some of them I think we kind of know. Adaptability, if you're already working in technology, it moves fast. We have to let go of ideas quickly and move on. We sometimes try things and they fail. And we have to say, we loved it, we did our best. Nevertheless, it's not working. Empathy. I think when that quotation I gave you at the beginning, that was, I'm not going to bother telling them that it's their job to understand it. It's too much work. That's a complete lack of empathy and common sense, because these are the people that are going to use it. But the empathy for the fact that people are having to use technologies and built into systems that they are working with, and they may not feel comfortable with it, and it's our job to support them and help them with that. Leadership. If you are on this call, you are going to be moving into leadership roles soon, or in 5 or 10 years from now, simply because the demand for your technical skills is through the roof at the moment. Employability of anyone with technical and digital and data and analytical skills is so high. Your career trajectory is almost a guarantee, provided you go through the right steps and continue moving forwards, making the right choices. You want to prepare for that leadership role today. You do not want to wait, get to it, and then discover, oh my goodness, this was a whole load of things I did not know I was signing up for. It's a skill you're going to have to learn, and you need to start learning it today, not in 10 years' time when you get that job. It's too late then. You're going to be learning on the job. And of course, communication, because what we are working with is being embedded into systems across the businesses that we're working in. And we need to work with our colleagues, customers, listen to them, and learn how to talk to them. I'm sure, like me, you've come to this webinar because you've seen everybody talking about the importance of soft skills in technology. Why is it now? Why is it particularly in the last couple of years we've seen an explosion in discussion around this? And I think it's just that realization that there are some pressures from the way that we're working that make it necessary. It's not optional. Complexity is growing. I was talking on Monday at a conference about distributed ledger systems, which are complicated enough, but then we're embedding them into historical and legacy data sets on finance, and we're layering smart contracts on top of that, and we're layering, and we just keep layering technology on technology on technology, and it's becoming incredibly complex. We have to explain that complexity, and we have to be able to ask people about risks. Agile methodologies, I think we forget. I think we forget how normal this is. This is our default way of working. We love to work with Agile. Claire, Agile methodologies, are they very common in your experience?
Yeah, very much. So obviously that's a sort of a project management term. So I think being Agile there are methodologies for being Agile, and there are ways of working, and you can find those out if that's not your field of expertise. You can find all of those sorts of actual theoretical ways of creating workflows and things like that, and having stand-ups and working with people so that you're always thinking iteratively, and you're changing, and you're reviewing what's coming back to you from people's experience. But for me, it's also about an agile mindset. So having a fixed mindset about how one thing is going to go, and you're quite married to the outcome, can make you quite reluctant, and can make people reluctant to change midway through and to receive that data and take it on board. So I think understanding people's barriers to being agile also is really, especially if you're going into a leadership role, I think that's really important, to have that idea of getting inside other people's journey and where their barriers might be coming up to that, because it might be that you're seeing people blocking these things from changing, even though the data is absolutely telling them this is the story of what's happening right now. We must change because it's not working, or something's looming. There's something looming coming up. We can see it in our data. This is a disaster coming, and yet no one's changed. And we've seen that from plane crashes and things like that, where actually, because of a certain mindset about hierarchy, perhaps you wouldn't ever tell your boss there's a big mountain there. We better pull up the aeroplane. We've seen that in lots of plane crashes where it's human nature to fit within certain mindsets of how things work and how the outcome must be such and such, on how you wouldn't upset the apple cart. You keep the status quo, and that's it's an ultimately you're doomed if you don't keep up to date and you don't keep that mentality and that mindset. So it's a really important one.
Yeah. And I think for people who are technically trained, agile is so obvious. It's the only way we do things. And I think sometimes we don't realize why, like you said, some people might be resistant. They might be really uncomfortable with it. Just because it's comfortable for us doesn't mean everybody is celebrating it. Cross-functional teams, we've got a big push coming this year from the UK government and from the open data community, who are always the open data guys the open community are always way ahead of the rest of the world. And they are very much pushing for a strong role for data stewards who can lead these cross-functional teams where we're talking to everybody, listening to everybody's views, communicating with people who are not technically trained like us. And then, of course, quite often we're doing this remotely and hybridly, and that introduces additional challenges. Quite honestly, it's hard. It's easy to get angry when you're sitting at home alone. So this is why we are starting to see it literally everywhere at the moment. I think it's always been an acknowledged problem, but right now you cannot ignore it, and people will be asking you about these things. And then, of course, it's necessary for your career. It's what's going to get you that promotion. You work on these and then you get the promotion, not the other way around. You don't get the promotion and then you work on them. If you are a senior in your job role, we see very much having better visibility and influence over others beyond your organization can really help you in your career. That can help you get to that next level when you feel like, there isn't a promotion every year for everybody. Even if you're high performing and even if you're incredibly successful, it may simply be that your company does not have a promotion for you that year. It's not in their budget. But we can then start to think about things like, well, what can we do beyond our organization to improve our visibility and influence and make ourselves even more employable? Problem solving is the only soft skill that's as in demand as data and digital. So there you go. If you've got problem solving, data and digital, you've literally ticked the three big ones. And it will help you with things like job security, adaptability, and just enjoying your daily work life, quite honestly. It's miserable when we find it difficult to get on with colleagues. Right, so how do we actually go about doing this? We have segregated the skills. We have researched with industry quite some time back. What are the skills you need to work with data? These were the ones we came up with, these 4 core competencies, and obviously knowledge and analytics makes us special. It's what gets us the big salaries. It's what gets us into the job. But we identified 3 other areas where employers were looking at and would value and would support. This would be governance, communication, and leadership. Governance is, I'm sure you know by this point, it's just being able to identify the risk of machines, especially today when we're working with agentic solutions. In other words, semi-autonomous agents. They need supervising. What are the risks? What are the biases that are coming in there? Communication, and we're gonna look at how we define communication in a moment, and leadership, of course, as well, because you are going to be called on to take a very senior role. And you can have a look at our website. Claire, did you want to? Is this a good moment to show our website for members?
Sure.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay, let me just get my screen up.
And you can have a look at how we have defined these skills. And how we support our members. I know lots of you that join us are our members, and you'll have access to our additional support on top of these webinars.
Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I'm really well coordinated today. I'm quite impressed with my purpleness. So this is our website, and I'm logged in at the moment. So if you are a member, then you would log in, and you have this section here where you can choose different areas that you can go straight to. I'm on the dashboard, which helps me choose where I want to navigate to go to. So I'm going to go to learning. And that takes us to some selections. This is like Claire was talking about, it's in different categories. If I wanted to go and do some of our data courses, there are hundreds, and I would click on here and I'd go off and I'd do that. Governance professionalism is here, communication is here. And then we've got all of the courses on our platform, which is governance and professionalism and communication, are here in this section. And we also have a few others which are great. And I'll just quickly show you those. So here we have the governance and professionalism set out into the different modules and the communications, but we've just renamed some. So I'm going to show you the renamed ones that expand a bit more on what each of those sections will bring you. And I'll just quickly highlight here some of the really nice business courses here, working with small data. And these are great for leaders who are in business, becoming better using data to drive your decision making, and entrepreneurial people who want to create startups. This is a great course for that. If you're an accountant, then this is another one, really good. If you want to upskill yourself, future-proof your role in the financial sector. So here we are. We've got some stranded out courses here. We've got some governance ones, and if we go down a little bit further, you'll see here we are. We've got fundamentals of communication, practical communication skills, advanced communication strategies, and persuasive communication. So important. I'll just click on one and just show you how they look. They're on demand, so they are here ready for you, and you can pick them up and put them down as and when you have time to do them. You would click on start the course here. I'll just do that for you in a second so you can see. And it's a combination of different sorts of formats. So there's video, there's parts to read, parts to do. It's a really nice, easy to digest format of course. These formats, and they, as I say, they're there for you to pick up and put down as and when you need. This one is looking at design theory. It's looking at how you structure your report to make it understandable by your team and by people who perhaps are not data specialists. It needs to be clear and understandable and accessible so that other people can ask questions about it. Really important here, avoiding accidentally putting in things which can be deceptive, and thinking about the particular bias that might be there, and bring that into your awareness so that you're being really ethical with how you're communicating your insights. I'll just quickly click on this for you, and you can have a look at what it looks like. You can see here, this is starting to go into data visualization, and there's a video here. And then it takes you through what you need to do to pick the correct approach, how the advice for, what type of graph, what to pick out. Okay, I'll go.
And what not to do.
Not to do.
Yeah.
Even more important than what not to do. That's funny. Let me go back here. Let me show you. I'll go to this persuasive communication. I like a bit of persuasive communication. So this one, we've got how to explain things to other people, which may be don't maybe are ambiguous. So how do you explain something that might not be a nice, neat answer, and still maintain your credibility? Claire, anything you want to pull out from this one in terms of persuasive communication?
I've got a few things I will pull out on my slides, but I think the key thing is you don't have to become a completely different person. You don't have to become a social media influencer or anything like that. It's just about, I think if you look at the titles there, and this is why I asked Claire to show some of these, it's about enhancing communication within the role that you're performing. So how do we tell an engaging story? How, when somebody passes us a piece of work and says, look at my report, isn't it great? And actually, you know what, it's absolutely terrible. How do we feed back on that? How do we communicate really important things in our role, like certainty? I can communicate it with a few mathematical numbers, but that's meaningless to other people. We're going to have to communicate it in another way that's accessible to people who work with us. So when we talk about soft skills, it's not changing who you are. It's not becoming an actor or anything like that. It's simply, can we genuinely refine the way we talk about our work so that people can find better value from it and make the most of it? And I think that's why it's worth having a quick look at how we define it and the skills that we feel you should be looking at. And you can see these on the on our website. You can see these in the Analyst Competency Framework, and you can do a little self-analysis against that as well.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. I think really important what you're saying about how do you bring someone on board who doesn't already agree with you? How do you challenge maybe someone's perspective that is skewed without upsetting them in a meeting where someone doesn't want to come away feeling that they've been proven wrong? They want to come away feeling that they got it and that they were with you and that was positive and that they feel on top of it. So it's, how do you challenge someone's perspective without also making them feel that they've really got it wrong, because that's not necessarily going to build that rapport. So how do you do it in a way that builds rapport rather than breaks rapport and breaks trust? So it's, they are really human skills, and I think in a world of AI and where things are becoming less context focused perhaps with AI, because we're humans, we're picking up on all of the context of what's going on. We know that we know what's going on in the lives of our teams, and I think those are the human things that we need to really highlight and try, be triumphant about and champion those things in terms of our skills. They're really important skills, and they're something that AI can't do.
I'm just having a look at the Q&A, and if you do have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A and we will get to them at the end. Yeah. So I think we've got 3 key takeaways at the moment. One is, don't feel this is not something you can do. This is absolutely within your skill set. You just have to nurture it. I think a second key takeaway is, make sure you understand that what we mean by soft skills. If we have this generic idea, I'm going to improve my soft skills, that's quite challenging. But if we can pin it down to specific skills that we're going to try and learn, it makes it so much easier to start then tackling the problem. We're analysts, break it down systematically into something we can deal with. Which then brings me to my third one, which is, we know you're not going to do this overnight. We know that you have to set your goals gradually. So we assume that you come to us at the very beginning of your career ready to follow instructions and be told what to do, ready to ask for guidance when things go wrong. That it's a very much a, I will do whatever you say role. And how do we then start moving you up towards taking more responsibility? And so for example, one of our targets is that you will seek and respond well to guidance from others at the very beginning. When your code gets stuck and you need to go and ask for help, you're very quickly going to drive your supervisor crazy if you haven't already carried out this particular checklist, which is in one of our training courses. You have to make sure that when you're presenting that problem, you don't just say, I've got a problem and you need to take responsibility and solve it, that you've listed all the variables involved. You've stated the libraries. You've checked you're not using deprecated libraries. You know, this is a very easy checklist to go through to facilitate that conversation around whether things are failing or not. At level 1 communications on reports, we want you to be able to report on your own work, contribute to a wider report. And so this is a lesson where we will teach you how to get into the topic, how to structure an introduction, how to describe the data. There's a lot of work going on about data provenance and being able to explain what we've done with our data at the moment. So these are standard things people expect you to do in the job that perhaps may not have been covered in your initial training. And then once we get you to a much more advanced stage where perhaps you are actually starting to lead teams, small teams, or lead a project, or negotiating success criteria across stakeholders. And this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite lessons. Things go wrong in our job. We know that. We expect failure. We expect like 80% failure and 20% success. People ask us stuff all the time, and we just have to say, I don't know. I have no idea. But if you just say, I don't know, you lose credibility and you lose authority. And so one of my favorite lessons is where we can actually say, I have no idea what you're talking about, but we can do it in an effective way. And we can use that opportunity to say, I don't know, to restate our position as an authority and an expert, you know? So I don't have the answer. Here's why. You've asked the wrong question. I don't have the answer, but here's what I do know. That was an issue we've discussed at length internally. This shows that, you know, what you've just asked is not a simple question. You might think it's a simple question, but actually there's a whole load of things you've forgotten. And then my favorite, that's not what we set out to do, but what we did achieve was. Because again, you know, the understanding of our work is incredibly limited. The failure rate is very high. We know there are technical limits. We can't just recreate real world scenarios digitally, and so it manages expectations. So that's one of my favorite lessons: how to say no idea, and still be credible. And so, you know, we see this as an arc. You're not going to become an expert at soft skills overnight, but we hope that, for example, in leadership, you will start reflecting on your work, managing risk of your own work, taking responsibility for your own work, managing your relationships with others. And then obviously, eventually, we want you to be able to support others. We want you to complete that arc. Now then, there's one thing. So one thing is we know the skills we need, we know where to get them, we know how to nurture them, but there is this final kind of part of it. Sometimes it's how do we talk about these things? And certainly there is a terminology. We have a new product coming very soon, a new service for our members, which is a portfolio, a digital portfolio where you can capture all of these amazing soft skills and your technical skills and certificates and micro credentials and all of the evidence that says to an employer, I'm not just talking about these things. Here's some evidence that I've actually worked on it and I've done it. I've done the work. One of the big things that we need to learn is the language of how do we talk about work? How do we talk about our role? You know, so you know, oh, you know, my colleague's so lazy. It's such an easy thing to say, but it's really never going to help you. It's not going to. If we can, you know, learn the language to be able to have these incredibly difficult conversations, there's a consistent pattern of missed deadlines. Then that gives somebody an action that they can then reflect on and hopefully act on. So part of that role is just how do we talk about these things in a professional way so that people don't feel attacked, but they feel that there's something they can move forwards. And I think this ties us into the final challenge. I'm going to bring my poll back. I didn't do very well. I'm sorry. I think I launched the entire poll in one go. I can relaunch it. Can I? No, I can't. Oh, I can't relaunch it. I tried. Oh, but you all filled it in anyway. Oh, fantastic. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You're my new favorite people. How do you feel when you receive negative feedback? Can you see that, Claire? Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. So 0 was like, oh my God, I hate it. I never want to hear it. 5 is like, I love it. Most of us are in the middle. Yeah. When we have to develop our soft skills, the lovely thing about technical skills, we can control it. We can go away and learn the rule. If it doesn't work, it's because we haven't got the right piece of knowledge. Whereas when it's our soft skills, I think it's more of a personal attack, isn't it? You didn't like the way I talked to you. You don't like me. And this is one of those things where we've got to become comfortable with. Receiving negative feedback is a fundamental part of how we develop soft skills, whether we hate it or not. Yeah, and I think most of us are somewhere we kind of know. We kind of know we need it. Nobody says no. We kind of know we need it to move forwards, but we don't like it. What we have. Oh, I think I should stop sharing. Hang on. There we go. Let's move forwards. I wanted to bring your attention to the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you've seen this before. It's very famous. When it comes to am I an easy person to get on with at work? Is a question we all need to ask ourselves. And let's say some of us are absolutely terrible. We know nothing about how difficult we are to work with. Some of us are absolute experts, a dream to work with. I've certainly worked. Claire is a dream to work with. Yeah. But then one thing is, how competent are we at these things? But another thing is, well, do we know we're good? Or do we know we're bad at these things? What is our self-perception of these things? And Dunning-Kruger carried out a large amount of work, huge amount of work, to see whether people who are really bad know that they're really bad, and to see whether people who are really good know they're really good. You would hope there would be a nice straight correlation going here. And what they found was actually this pattern. I think when we look at social media, we can all see this. I don't think we're surprised. What they found was actually people who know nothing are at the peak of Mount Stupid. They actually often very confident, even though they know absolutely nothing. Sooner or later, we get some negative feedback that gives us that wake-up call. We're not as great as we think we are. And then often many of us, even though we've moved forwards in terms of our understanding, we feel we're in the valley of despair. We feel profoundly uncomfortable with having to accept I'm not as great as I thought I was. Once we get past this, and the key to reaching the valley of despair, I'm afraid, is learning to hear negative feedback, and learning to maybe question it, but accept possibly, especially if you hear it from multiple different people on different occasions, accept that they may have a point. And then we start moving into the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of sustainability, where there's more or less a decent balance between what we know and how confident we are that we know it. But yeah, so we just, if you're a very early career, you're going to have to go through this. I can't save you. But if you know it, if you're warned that it's coming, I think it's much easier to get over it. And key reasons why we fail to acknowledge our own incompetence and soft skills. We do overestimate our skills quite often. We don't always acknowledge mistakes. The Peter principle is a really common one. A person who's amazing at coding is not going to necessarily be a good manager. They're going to have to put some work in. Lots of us end up working with Peters. So lots of us have Peters perhaps as our bosses, who they were amazing coders. They're not good managers, but they're still our manager and they're making our lives difficult. Toxic leadership is a problem, and you're going to find it. You'll need some strategies to cope with it. And then there may be some other things. Some corporate cultures are quite difficult to work in. Some societal cultures are quite difficult as well. The Little Prince, the Little Prince principle is one of the, if you've been treated like, you know, you never make a mistake, it's going to be harder for you to acknowledge. If you've been treated like you always make a mistake, that's also going to be really challenging. We want a nice, healthy balance here. So, you know, I think this is my final slide on this. We've got on our website all of the skills that you can map yourself against, and you're welcome to do a little self-assessment. If you're very brave, you might want to ask a colleague to say where they think you're strong. And if don't ask them for negative feedback. They'll say, if they're nice colleagues, they won't say anything, but ask them for 2 or 3 suggestions. What 2 or 3 things could I do differently? You might actually then start getting to the truth. This is the Johari window. I think we've seen it with data. We know it with data. There are things that you are aware of, and that the others are not. But there are certainly problems you have in your soft skills that you are not aware of, and maybe your colleagues haven't even noticed yet. And we have to actively be trying to identify, what are these things? What are the things holding me back? What is going to make my life difficult? And then, you know, what can I do to get better? I mean, there's lots of support for this online. We've collated the most relevant training for data analysts, because that's our audience. But, you know, once we start to name the problems, there's so much help out there to address them.
If I can just build on that as well, Claire, I think, you know, I was just about to say the 360-degree feedback. Great minds think alike. I think it's that level of self-awareness, isn't it? And really leaning into being curious, not just about other people's motivations, but about your own strengths, your own natural tendencies. Everyone's got a particular working style. They'll have a dominant working style, and you know, it's easy. You can find that online and do an assessment and find out, what's my dominant working style? Who do I work with? I wonder what their working styles are. How do we butt up against each other, and how do we complement each other? Because your working style, your dominant working style, can be your biggest ally, your biggest asset, but it can also be your Achilles heel. So let's say that you're really good at making quite good decisions, but you like to work quite quickly. You can be a hurry up type person. That can be brilliant for getting stuff done, but it can also be your Achilles heel, because you'll be frustrated with other people who slow you down or who don't make decisions quick enough. So that can be also a place of conflict, and it can just be because you're being triggered because you're a hurry up type person. But if you don't have that awareness about yourself, you don't really have that way to be in control of it and be aware of, oh, actually that's my hurry up being triggered. The same thing, that you can find your personality type. So you've got your working style, but also your personality types. You can really get some more self-awareness of your own different priorities and how they sort of link up with the rest of your team. Over to you.
Yeah, no, and I think as well, it's important. It's not just what your manager thinks of you. It's what people below you as well, and colleagues to the side of you think of you. Their opinion matters. And if you're very lucky or unlucky, I'm not too sure which is the one. Some companies do this thing called a 360-degree feedback, where they literally talk to anyone who has any contact with you: customers, management, subordinates. And they get their opinions and they tell you what people think of you.
And you rate yourself. No, it's really good. I've done this.
Yeah.
You pick sort of five to eight sort of people that you work with. Like you say, a range of people that you're going to get sort of a really interesting perspective. And you rate yourself, and then you compare it, your own rating. So it's looking at your own understanding of your blind spots and the bits where you think you're quite good, and see, do they match the way that I intend to communicate? Does it land the same way as I think I'm intending it, or does it sort of get lost in translation? It's really, really powerful. The other thing I think that works alongside that is, particularly if you're looking at communication and how you present to people, is to video yourself, because you'll watch yourself and realize, oh, I didn't realize I kept saying so much, or my body language is not very confident, and that really doesn't, I don't really convey the importance of what I'm saying. So I think video as well, alongside those things, can really give you some insights that even the best will in the world of someone giving you some feedback wouldn't quite pick out what you might see yourself.
Yeah. And tolerance, you know, there was a time, I think, when Peters, remember the Peter principle, that being good at coding makes you a good manager. There was a time when Peters were tolerated in businesses, but I think those days are closing rapidly. I don't think we have any questions in Q&A. Is there anything you would like to ask us? We're very happy to, I think that's the end of my slides now. Yeah. Oh, here we go. My final philosophical message for you all. Technical prowess opens doors, but soft skills, you know, they're the ones. We know this. We see this in our senior members. Those soft skills really are the key to long-term success. And particularly when you get very senior, you need to get very ambitious in terms of how you influence and manage others. Right, I'm just looking for the Q&A and I've lost it. Where's it gone? Oh, here we go. Any questions? I've got no open questions. Thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime. It's really great to have you here with us. It's really fantastic that you're thinking about these issues and thinking about what you can do. If you don't feel confident asking questions in the Q&A, I'm sure I've got our email address. Oh, I haven't, no. Yes, I have, yes. You know, if you have any questions, do email us. I would encourage you to visit our website. One of these QR codes can get you there to our website. You can find our analyst competency framework. It's all out on the public site. We do these webinars because, you know, it's our role to promote digital and data awareness in the wider public, but with our members, we can have that little bit more special relationship and we can do that little bit more for you. So if you're not yet a member, please think about it. Really not expensive. The support we can give you is amazing on technical side as well as the soft skills side. Yeah. All right. Okay. I see no questions. Claire, are we?
I think we're good to end there. Thank you everybody for joining us. And like Claire said, we'd be thrilled if you decide to become a member of the IOA. Please have a look at follow the QR codes and have a bit of an exploration of the website. But in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day.